When life is in transition, life tends to fall apart. And that means your eating schedule, your workout schedule, and even your spiritual schedule. That's the one thing I want to talk to you guys about, is learning how to spiritually shed those pounds along with physically. Yeah, why not? I'm CatholicEdgar. Let's do this. Life, oh life, off in transition. Isn't that what's always happening? There's never any consistency in life, especially if you're a college student. I know that transition happens every single semester, but I think it can be applied to any life. Any life, whenever there's transition, things fall apart, and if you don't have a good schedule, if you don't have a good routine, then you know what? It's not gonna work out. So that's what I wanna talk to you guys about today, is learning how to get on that schedule, getting on that routine, and shed those spiritual and physical pounds. So from my personal experience, I've always tried to lose weight. Some days it's been more successful than others, but you know, I do what I can. It's not easy, but there's always setbacks in life. Over the last 4 years, I've been going to school, and I finally finished up, thanks be to God, but at the same time, it was not easy, because I also, during that time, wanted to lose weight. I wanted to get on track, but there was always something holding me back. And yes, of course, my mind was holding me back and not getting on that schedule, but at the same time, there are things outside of your own control that happen. As for me, through my entire 4 years of college, I struggled with cancer. Every year, I was re-diagnosed because I would have surgery. 6 months later, I would come back for tests, and then I would go back to school, and then they would tell me that it has returned. So it's these physical and also spiritual problems that kept arising that, in a sense, held me back from doing what I wanted to do, getting on a spiritual track, because how emotionally and spiritually exhausting it was. And at the same time, having that in mind, not wanting to work out physically, and also after surgery, not physically being capable of working out as hard as I wanted to, at least. But I think the one key to this is taking those hardships and using them against that laziness or that lack of inspiration, and using those to motivate you. So one of the things that I should have done now that I stop and actually think about it, now that I'm all better, so that pain that I was physically experiencing after my surgery could have been harnessed as motivation to go out there and push myself to the limit that I can, because at the time I was not capable of lifting weight. I was not capable of doing 2 hours of exercise like I love doing. As for the spiritual aspect of that, I was emotionally exhausted, spiritually exhausted, and I was using that to keep me down. From a Catholic standpoint, that's a perfect time when our spirituality needs to come up and rise. That's when grace comes in. Our faith focuses a lot on the sacrifice of our Lord, and that we should be partakers of that. Now, in moments of suffering, are we partakers in that, or are we letting ourselves get down and get spiritually overweight? And it's in moments like that when honest prayer is necessary, because if you're not honest with yourself and honest with God, honestly, how are you going to get anywhere? I think the key to this is recognizing where you are and keeping that in prayer. One of my favorite quotes of St. Augustine is his very, very honest prayer when he says, "Lord, give me chastity, but not yet." Because honestly, that is where he was at that time. Granted, he recognized that that is not where he needed to be, unchaste, but that was on his heart. And through that, God let him out of his sin and brought him to become one of the greatest Catholic saints out there. Think about that. The beauty, the amazing graces that God can pour out when we are honest with ourselves and honest with Him. When I first started getting involved in the faith, I started getting into a lot of apologetics, and there was one gentleman who I really enjoyed listening to. His name is John Martinoni. One of the points that struck me the hardest in his conversion story was when he said that to this day, the most honest prayer that he ever prayed was him asking God to take his life because of how depressed he was. Now think about that. One of the most honest prayers. And it wasn't necessarily a prayer that we all want to pray, God, take my life. No, of course not. But what I mean is that when we are honest with ourselves and we are ready to recognize how low we really are when it comes to, in these situations, then God is willing to work with us. It's the same thing with working out and fitness. We have to recognize that, you know what, I can't lift like that bodybuilder over there. Or you know what, those people that do CrossFit, I don't have that stamina. I can't do that much cardio, but you know what? You know what I can do? I can lift this much weight and I can push myself to the limit and move on from there. Same thing with eating. I've been tracking my calories for the last couple of weeks. Been falling off here and there, but I've been, for the most part, staying consistent. Now, the thing that I've heard that people always say, especially on different YouTube channels and everything, is that they say you have to be honest with yourself about how many calories you're consuming, because if you don't, you're just cheating yourself. And if we're not honest with our prayer, we're cheating ourselves too, because we're not allowing God to enter into our hearts. Another point that I wanted to make when it came to spiritual and physical weight loss is staying motivated. As you can see, right behind me, I have an image of St. Padre Pio, a spiritual motivator for me, along with St. Augustine, St. Patrick, St. Peter, St. Paul, all these men, all these holy men who I look up to as inspirations because I connect with them. I read their stories, I understand their struggles, and I connect with them and recognize, look where they are now. I have two good friends who really do motivate me. One of them is my good friend Junior, who I first started working out with. After one of my surgeries, I wanted to go back to lifting weights, but I couldn't. I had pain every time I lifted weights. It just wasn't healthy, it wasn't good for me. One day he invited me with a bunch of other guys to do some Muay Thai kickboxing, and we started very easily. They taught me, were very patient with me as we were all learning together to do this skill, and now I see where my friends have come. More recently, my friend Junior has actually competed in his first amateur fight and won a belt. I mean, that's great motivation for me. I see that and I'm proud of him because being able to work out with him motivated me so many times, and he pushed me. We pushed each other and helped each other, and we kept each other accountable. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, subscribe, and also comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I'm Catholic Edgar. Pax Vobiscum.